The musicians that you talk to, everybody from Fred Armisen to Peter Gabriel, my goodness, and and big names. What a surprise that must have been for you to uncover those names.
You should get as many people to play with this thing as possible. See what it sparks.
I like it. It's almost human.
I do remember playing it.
He had arranged to do a demo for Paul McCartney.
Everybody's learning right now how someone's brain worked.
My initial goal was to make a short film about the resurrection of the synth. And so I was filming that because I toured with musicians, but I wasn't one. So I was like, hey, I've got something cool that you might like. I'm going to film this story, and I'll put myself in it to kind of like help people who don't know about synths to learn with me as I'm learning, and that'll be the story.
Define the synth and the Resynator, what it is.
It's, the easiest way I can describe it is that it's a digital analog hybrid. And in the late 70s, that was kind of unheard of. At least what I've been told. And so it's digital pitch tracking, so it uses software and code to be able to track the pitch of anything. Your voice, a guitar, any one sound, it's monophonic, so it tracks the pitch of one sound. So if you play a chord, like 6 strings on a guitar, it's only going to find one thing to track out of that. So it's really monophonic, tracks the pitch digitally, but then it's got analog oscillators, filters, outputs that make things sound and feel human and real and warm. And that's why when digital keyboards came out in the 80s, people didn't always respond well to them because they were digital and stiff and didn't have much of a personality, but they had a very specific sound, which is why it became the sound of the 80s. But a lot of people didn't like that because it wasn't expressive enough.
At what point did the search for your father become a film?
This is my personal story, and it's like I said, it's a passion project, and it's self-funded, and it's I would never be able to put myself through what I went through to be able to do this again.
You didn't know your dad. Tell me what the circumstance was that.
He passed away. He died in a car crash in 1988, the same year I was born. I was 10 weeks old, and he was driving around an outer belt on the freeway in Indianapolis and crashed. And so I didn't know anything about him really. My mom and I and my older sister, who had a different dad, it was just the 3 of us girls for the first 9 years. And then my stepdad came into the picture, and he assumed the role of dad. He drove me to school, and he answered all my questions, as I say in the film. And I had a family, so I was never looking for my father.
He worked with Stevie Wonder.
He was kaleidoscopic.
Did he ever do anything wrong?
You were at your grandmother's house. Now, were you looking for something about your dad, or did you just come across it?
I was looking for the Resynator, and I knew that it was up there. I'd known my whole life that it was in the attic. I just never cared to go get it. So it wasn't until I was on tour with Grace Potter that I was interested and inspired to figure out what it was. And again, at that point, it didn't have anything to do with my father. I didn't want to go to the attic to learn about who my dad was. I went to the attic to learn about what this thing was.
I'd known my whole life that it was stashed away in a box somewhere in the attic, an abandoned mystery for 25 years. But maybe it was finally time for me to go find it.
Being in front of the camera, even now, is really uncomfortable for me because I'm not used to it, and I never wanted to be in front of the camera. I worked for Grace. She's in front of the camera. I'm the person behind making sure we're on time, and so none of it was natural to me. But whenever I was in those moments, I really did. The information being received was so heavy that I forgot the cameras are there. But watching the footage back, I was reading a letter with my mom, and she breaks down, and it's this moment of closure for her where she's finally releasing all of this stuff, and I was emotionless. I was shocked, but I also just couldn't process what was happening. And when I watched that footage back, I was like, why didn't I have any emotion? And it's because at that point, I didn't really feel a connection to my dad.
Dear Mom and Dad, I'm writing this letter at age 35 to tell you how unloved I've felt for my entire life.
I don't want to relive all this stuff.
And then by the time I read a letter that was given to me, I felt totally different. And even watching it back now, I get so emotional now because I feel differently. than when I was in the moment. I just hadn't felt him yet.
What are you going to do with the Resynator that you have? Should it go in the Smithsonian?
I don't want it to go behind glass. My grandma, that's what she wanted. She wanted it to be in a museum, and I said, Kitty, nobody knows what this is. Nobody's going to put it in a museum. Nobody knows what it is. Like, it needs to be used. It needs to be played. It sat in a box for 25 years. It's not meant to be behind glass or in a box. It's meant to be used. That's what Don wanted. So I just want people to play it and to put it on recorded music. Like, I want it to get on big records and be able to people to hear it and appreciate it and play it. So I've built, there's 6 units working now.